Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is Explanation of Battle Through the Heavens episode number 238 based on novel. So let's start. Everyone makes some brief introductions within the meeting room before taking their seats. There have already been many factions within the Black Corner region, which had been turned into a bloodbath by the Hall of Soul. However, those fellows have already been eliminated. Xiao Yang looked at everyone before he slowly opened his mouth and said. The face of Su Qian's group involuntarily twitched upon hearing this. Given these people's terrifying strength, it was not impossible to exterminate the entire Black Corner region. The Black Corner region does not have a great enmity with them, does it? Su Qian laughed bitterly. The Hall of Soul was a faction of the Central Plains. There is seldom any interaction between this place and the Central Plains. Hence, they were unable to imagine why the Hall of Soul would do such a thing. Xiao Yang exchanged glances with Mang Tiankai before nodding his head. After which, he opened his mouth and summarized the occurrence on the Central Plains. This also included the current fight between the Alliance and the Han clan. You are really extraordinary. In over a decade, you have actually already reached this level. Su Qian's eyes watched Xiao Yang in surprise. Although Mang Tiankai had only briefly mentioned some matter, Su Qian was still able to sense the soul-stirring incidents that had occurred. Old Qian, Old Bai, Wu Hao and the others involuntarily nodded. When Xiao Yang had left back then, he was merely at the Do Huang class. Now, however, it was likely extremely hard to find any expert in this world who could match Xiao Yang. This achievement really caused one to be amazed. Based on what Headmaster had said, the reason that the Black Corner region has ended up attracting such a disaster is actually because of the magma world under our academy. Old Qian and Old Bai looked at each other before speaking with startled faces. The bottom of the magma might have something that the Han clan required. Mang Tiankai nodded and replied, the Han clan is usually ruthless. In order to successfully obtain what they want, they will kill all life within this Black Corner region. This is not a difficult task for them. The ones who had come this time around are merely the vanguard. Soon, it is likely that the Han clan army will also arrive. At that time, there will definitely be an earth-shaking big battle in this place. These students must not remain here, Xiao Yang said. Su Qian and the others looked at each other and laughed bitterly. It was really a big trouble that had appeared from nowhere. This place was merely quietly teaching students. Who could have expected that it would attract such trouble? Moreover, the source of the trouble was actually the strongest faction on the Dochi continent. If it is not because all of you had arrived in time, it is likely that blood will really flow like river across the Black Corner region. Su Qian sighed quietly. They had also witnessed the techniques to those fellows from the Han clan earlier. If it was not because Xiao Yang had appeared earlier, a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood would likely have been formed here. First Elder, relax. The Han clan might be powerful, but my alliance army is not afraid of them. We will not allow them to easily destroy the Jiznan Academy. Xiao Yang smiled slightly and comforted. The academy is a small matter. It is fine as long as everyone is all right. Su Qian shook his head. Immediately, his eyes looked towards Xiao Yang. There was a gentle and pleased expression in them as he said, after so many years of experience, that young fellow from back then had finally become a true expert. Xiao Yang will always remember how First Elder has taught me back then. Xiao Yang softly said. His tone was sincere. From a certain point of view, Su Qian could be considered half of his teacher. When the youth had arrived at the academy back then, Su Qian had given him much help in many matters. At that time, Xiao Yang was merely a youth, who had carried some hatred and miserably fled from the Jianan Academy. Haha, since you have come to my academy, it is something that I ought to do. Su Qian waved his hand and laughed. He, this little fellow is currently on equal terms as the clan head. Now that we put it this way, it seems that I am a little superior to him here. Mang Tiankai by the side laughed strangely. He had already treated Xiao Yang as a monster. The first time they met was at the Empty Realm Lightning Pool. At that time, Xiao Yang was merely at the Dozun class. However, no one could imagine that within a short few years, the latter had already surpassed him the next time they met. This speed caused even him to laugh bitterly and exclaim. After all, the name of the top person amongst the younger generation of the continent was definitely not an empty one. When he thought of how this top person had actually come from the Jianan Academy, Mang Tiankai involuntarily felt a joy in his heart. Xiao Yang shook his head helplessly. His expression was solemn as he said, Old Kai, you should pay more attention during this period of time. Once you discover the appearance of any experts from the Han clan, you will issue a warning. The reinforcement of the alliance will gradually hurry over. Xiao Yang Gege? Zuna blinked her eyes and said, I will head to the magma world. Xiao Yang's eyes hardened as he spoke in a deep voice. He must confirm just what strange aspect was present in the magma world below. Su Qian was startled after hearing that Xiao Yang was about to venture deep into the magma world. However, He quickly relaxed the moment he thought of the terrifying strength of the former. Although the magma world was mysterious and unfathomable, it should not be difficult for her to escape unhurt with his strength. Xiao Yang Gge, why don't I go down together with you? Zuna knitted her brow and spoke in a somewhat worried manner. If the ancient god mansion was really present below, it would be difficult to predict the danger involved. After all, anything a Dodi left behind would not be simple. There are hardly any of us here. All of you should take care of the academy. Xiao Yang shook his head and smiled. Relax. With his current strength, even if there was really an expert comparable to Hun Tiendi at the bottom of the magma, he should be able to escape even if he could not defeat the other party. Zuna did not say anything more after seeing Xiao Yang's insistence. She simply nodded gently and voiced some reminders. Let's not delay. I will leave immediately. Xiao Yang was someone who acted with lightning-like speed. Since they had already made their decision, there was no need to waste time. Hence, he directly stood up. Su Qian and the others exchanged glances upon seeing this before nodding slowly. The bottom of the blazing Sky Chi refining tower in the inner academy. Xiao Yang stood at the entrance into the magma world. He suddenly beckoned with his hand and many invisible flames suddenly flew out from the blazing Sky Chi refining tower before gathering into a cluster of invisible flame in his hand. Falling heart flame. Haha, it has been so many years and it has grown quite a lot. Xiao Yang smiled as he looked at this invisible flame in his hand. This thing was the baby-formed fallen heart flame that he had found within the magma world back then. However, after growing for over a decade, it was clearly much stronger as compared to back then. This little thing had consumed a great amount of our effort. Su Qian laughed. In order to groom this fallen heart flame, they had put in a great amount of hard work during these years. Fortunately, it was all worthwhile. The current blazing Sky Chi refining tower was much more effective compared to back then. After all, that matured fallen heart flame from back then would not listen to their orders. On the other hand, this current fallen heart flame did not feel any resistance to their orders due to it being groomed by them over a prolonged period of time. Xiao Yang smiled and nodded. He flicked his finger and sent this fallen heart flame, which was quivering in his hand, flying away. After which, he once again looked at Zuna and the others. He said, "Wait for me to return." Be careful. Zuna softly instructed after hearing this. Xiao Yang smiled and did not continue to hesitate. His body flashed and turned into a black light which directly rushed into the magma world through the tunnel below. The magma world was still completely crimson even after so many years. At a glance, one was still unable to see an end to it. Xiao Yang was suspended above the magma. He lifted his hand to look at a dug-out cave a short distance below. A smile was revealed on the corner of his mouth. It seemed that he had recalled the bitter days of training he had experienced in this place back then. I have finally returned. However, this time around, I wish to see just what exactly is below. A flash passed through Xiao Yang's eyes as he looked at the sea of magma below. The purifying demonic lotus flame surged out from within his body. Finally, it turned into a fire glow that rushed into the magma with a splash. It stirred waves of magma waves as it entered the magma. Xiao Yang swiftly ventured deep into the magma after Xiao Yang entered the magma. The surrounding magma would automatically be vaporized when they entered a 5 feet radius around him. With the might of the purifying demonic lotus flame, it was clear that these magma did not have the qualification to pose any obstruction. Xiao Yang's current speed was many times faster compared to back then. Within less than 10 minutes, he had gradually ventured deep into the magma. At the same time, his body had also become much slower. His expression was calm as he watched the surrounding of the magma. It was possible for him to sense that there was quite a lot of obscure auras swiftly approaching him. That kind of magma creature. Xiao Yang smiled indifferently. His foot gently pressed under him. Immediately, a vast and mighty spiritual fluctuation surged from his brow. In an instant, the surrounding magma was blasted apart. Many figures hidden within the magma suddenly emitted a sharp, miserable screech. The magma fluctuation around Xiao Yang became even more intense after these screech sounded. After which, Xiao Yang saw the densely packed bright red figures rushing over from all directions and completely surrounding him. Xiao Yang's eyes swept over these lizard-like magma creatures. Finally, they paused at a spot a short distance away. 2 completely cream-white lizard people were standing there. They appeared much older than the other lizard people. The most surprising thing was that the strength of these 2 lizard people had actually reached the Ban Sheng class. No wonder Tian Huazunjia had ended up dying here back then. There are actually such existences amongst the lizard people. A sudden comprehension rose in Xiao Yang's eyes as he looked at the 2 lizard people. Immediately, he rejoiced slightly. Fortunately, he did not meet these people back then. Otherwise, it was likely that just a slap from these 2 would be able to kill him at that time. Human, this is the tomb of the god. It is not a place where you should venture. Quickly return. Otherwise, You will end up dying here if you awaken its guardian. One of the two white lizard people actually began to speak the human tongue while Xiao Yang was quietly feeling shocked. Although it appeared to be unfamiliar with the language, those words were still transmitted into Xiao Yang's ears. Tomb of the God. Guardian. Xiao Yang's eyes flashed upon hearing these two terms. A red flame surged within the Magam. Xiao Yang crossed his arms over his chest. He looked at the densely packed mysterious creatures around him and laughingly said, "Since there is a guardian, may I inquire about what it is guarding? Human, leave immediately or die." The two densely white fire lizard people's eyes were filled with an icy chill as they stared at Xiao Yang. Those words that they were unfamiliar with were slowly spoken by them. The surrounding lizard people revealed some ferocity within their eyes after the words of those two sounded. Their scales had become much darker. Xiao Yang had a calm expression. His face was not altered because of the surging murderous intent around him. If he had met with this lineup back then, it was likely that he would have been terrified to death. Now, however, two mere Banshungs and a group of insignificant experts did not pose the least bit of threat against him. "I will definitely head to the bottom of the magma today." Xiao Yang laughed softly. His body did not move. Instead, a vast and mighty spiritual fluctuation swiftly spread from his brow with lightning-like speed. The magma suddenly shook intensely after this spiritual fluctuation spread. There was a vague buzzing sound being emitted. Soon after, the bodies of the many fire lizard people around suddenly trembled. A heaven-like spiritual pressure rose from deep within their souls, causing them to tremble. Their formation became a complete mess in an instant. The two completely white fire lizard people had a change in expression upon seeing this scene. Before they could let out a sharp cry. However, the magma in front of them had suddenly exploded. A vast and mighty indescribable fluctuation ruthlessly exploded on their bodies. Bang! Tens of thousand feet of magma wave swiftly spread. The two white fire lizard were directly blasted away. Blood was spat out from their mouths. Their eyes contained a rich shock as they looked at Xiao Yang. "Get lost." Xiao Yang had a stern expression. A thunder-like cry exploded from the tip of his tongue. Vast and powerful spiritual fluctuation was hidden within his cry as it violently spread. It directly caused the area within 100,000 feet of this magma sea region to form giant waves. Bang! The sound spread and the countless lizard people around were sent flying away. However, Xiao Yang had controlled his strength well. Although he had forced back these lizard people, he did not take their lives. After all, he was not familiar with this place and he could not predict just what kind of unexpected occurrence would occur if he engaged in a large-scale slaughter of these creatures. Regardless of what the situation was, this place could possibly have been left behind by the last Dodi on this Dochi continent. Being careful was definitely the right choice. The bottom of the magma was turned upside down by Xiao Yang. Those fierce-looking fire lizard had also withdrew a great distance with shocked faces. They looked at the demon god-like figure from a great distance away. That frightening spiritual pressure caused even their souls to tremble. Those who dares barge into the tomb of the god will suffer divine punishment. The two completely white fire lizard people swallowed the sweet blood in their mouths and roared with a hoarse voice. Xiao Yang merely smiled faintly in the face of such a threat. His heart began to feel certain that there was definitely something existing at the bottom of the magma. The tomb of the god that these creatures had spoken about was likely the Tushi ancient god mansion. A fiery heat rose into Xiao Yang's eyes the moment he thought of this. He licked his lips and his eyes looked towards the black magma below. There appeared to be some frightening thing lingering at the end of this seemingly bottomless magma, which caused one's paws to stand. "Hopefully I am right," Xiao Yang softly muttered. His body moved, turning into a fire glow that rushed towards the bottom of the magma with lightning-like speed. Those fire lizards hesitated for a moment as they looked at his figure. Ultimately, however, they did not intervene to stop him. From the situation earlier, they clearly understood that if Xiao Yang had not shown mercy, it was likely that all of them would have already died. "Foolish human, you are seeking your own death." The two completely white lizard people exchanged glances. Finally, they snorted coldly and moved, merging into the magma and swiftly heading into the distance. Without the obstruction of those fire creatures, Xiao Yang's speed had also increased greatly. However, regardless of how frighteningly fast he was still unable to reach the end of the magma. The road in front had become viscous and blurry because of the rippling magma. Xiao Yang frowned slightly in the face of this situation. However, he did not give up. The depth of this magma sea had far exceeded his expectations. This was no longer something that the strength of a person could create. Perhaps only by reaching that level would one possess such an ability. "I don't believe that there is really no end to this magma." Xiao Yang let out a low laughter. His body flew past like a meteorite. A vacuum was formed wherever it passed. The magma within it had actually been shattered into nothing. Bang! Xiao Yang charged through the magma with great ease. The color of the surrounding magma had already gradually turned from bright red into complete black at some unknown moment. After the magma had turned into this color, Xiao Yang's speed had also been greatly reduced. There seemed to be a kind of mysterious heat hidden within this magma. This heat energy was something that even the purifying demonic lotus flame could not easily purify in a short period of time. After the change of the surroundings, Xiao Yang's eyes had also begun to flicker rapidly. However, the caution within his eyes was gradually became denser when a forewarning suddenly surged within his heart. Immediately, he stilled his rapidly descending body. The magma around Xiao Yang shook and exploded as Xiao Yang came to a rapid halt. His eyes directly looked in front of him. From his spiritual perception, this place seemed to be the end of the magma. However, he could only see an endless magma. Xiao Yang's eyes continued to flash. Suddenly, he extended his hand. The purifying demonic lotus flame surged over it and gently touched the magma in front of him. Magma began to fluctuate as Xiao Yang's hand touched the magma. His hand directly disappeared. That manner was as though he had touched the boundary of another realm. A realm is hidden at the bottom of the magma. Xiao Yang watched this scene and involuntarily inhaled a breath of cool air. He currently possessed the ability to build a realm. However, it was likely that even Han Tiandi and Jiu Yuan would find it extremely difficult to build a realm at the bottom of this magma. The Tu Shi ancient god really lives up to his reputation. Xiao Yang laughed softly. A shock appeared in his calm heart. The only person in the last 10,000 years who had the ability to do this was that only Do Di. At this moment, Xiao Yang was already 80% certain that the Tu Shi ancient god mansion was located in this place. A wild excitement leaped within those dark black eyes. Xiao Yang merely hesitated for a moment before he clenched his teeth and suddenly stepped forward. He directly strided into the realm at the bottom of the magma. The original magma flow that filled his ears disappeared the moment he entered that mysterious space. A somewhat dim and quiet endless space appeared in front of Xiao Yang. This realm had been quiet for an unknowingly long period of time. The entire realm was filled with an extremely ancient scent. Xiao Yang's eyes slowly swept over this place. It was completely empty. There was nothing strange. He frowned slightly as his body cautiously advanced. Xiao Yang flew through this empty space. He finally paused a couple of minutes later and focused his eyes on a spot in the distance. There was a vague cluster of light suspending over that place. Xiao Yang hesitated for a moment as he looked at the cluster of light. Finally, he clenched his teeth and flew over. With his gradual approach, the situation within the cluster of light was caught by his eyes. It was a stone door, 100,000 feet large stone door. The stone door quietly stood in the empty space. It was as though it would exist for eternity. An ancient desolate aura slowly spread from it and reverberated over the sky. There was a similarly large square in front of the stone door. Xiao Yang paused at a spot that was a great distance from the ancient stone door. His eyes dully watched this mysterious scene within the dim space. At that instant, he was actually left speechless. Xiao Yang appeared just like an ant as he stood in front of the majestic stone door. A respect surged within his heart without him realizing it. Soon after, however, he was suddenly aware that a caution had rose within his heart. This stone door gave him an impulse that he could not control. The entire place was indeed extremely mysterious and unfathomable. Xiao Yang's eyes swept over the stone door. Finally, they paused at the top of it. 3 ancient words were present. His eyes suddenly shrunk when they drifted towards those words. His heart began to pound wildly. Ancient God Mansion. The ancient words did not appear overly beautiful. It was ordinary, but it seemed to possess an endless night that seemed to control the world. I have finally found you. The smile on the corner of Xiao Yang's mouth suddenly widened as he looked at the 3 ancient words. The smile on the corner of Xiao Yang's mouth had lasted only for a moment when a chill suddenly appeared in his heart. It was as though there was something observing him. This feeling caused Xiao Yang's expression to gradually become solemn. His eyes swept around him, but he did not discover anything. A moment later, his eyes narrowed and he slowly lowered his head. At the same time, a fire pillar shot out from his finger. The fire pillar spread over this dark world. Xiao Yang's eyes also hardened at this moment. He was stunned as he looked at the space below. The blood on his body seemed to have stilled. This is. Xiao Yang felt as though his skin had exploded within the quiet space. There was a similarly large square in front of the stone door. Xiao Yang paused at a spot that was a great distance from the ancient stone door. His eyes dully watched this mysterious scene within the dim space. At that instant, he was actually left speechless. Xiao Yang appeared just like an ant as he stood in front of the majestic stone door. A respect surged within his heart without him realizing it. Soon after, however, he was suddenly aware that a caution had rose within his heart. This stone door gave him an impulse that he could not control. The entire place was indeed extremely mysterious and unfathomable. Xiao Yang's eyes swept over the stone door. Finally, they paused at the top of it. 3 ancient words were present. His eyes suddenly shrunk when they drifted towards those words. His heart began to pound wildly. Ancient God Mansion. The ancient words did not appear overly beautiful. It was ordinary, but it seemed to possess an endless night that seemed to control the world. I have finally found you. The smile on the corner of Xiao Yang's mouth suddenly widened as he looked at the 3 ancient words. The smile on the corner of Xiao Yang's mouth had lasted only for a moment when a chill suddenly appeared in his heart. It was as though there was something observing him. This feeling caused Xiao Yang's expression to gradually become solemn. His eyes swept around him, but he did not discover anything. A moment later, his eyes narrowed and he slowly lowered his head. At the same time, a fire pillar shot out from his finger. The fire pillar spread over this dark world. Xiao Yang's eyes also hardened at this moment. He was stunned as he looked at the space below. The blood on his body seemed to have stilled. This is. Xiao Yang felt as though his skin had exploded within the quiet space. There was a similarly large square in front of the stone door. Xiao Yang paused at a spot that was a great distance from the ancient stone door. His eyes dully watched this mysterious scene within the dim space. At that instant, he was actually left speechless. Xiao Yang appeared just like an ant as he stood in front of the majestic stone door. A respect surged within his heart without him realizing it. Soon after, however, he was suddenly aware that a caution had rose within his heart. This stone door gave him an impulse that he could not control. The entire place was indeed extremely mysterious and unfathomable. Xiao Yang's eyes swept over the stone door. Finally, they paused at the top of it. 3 ancient words were present. His eyes suddenly shrunk when they drifted towards those words. His heart began to pound wildly. Ancient God Mansion. The ancient words did not appear overly beautiful. It was ordinary, but it seemed to possess an endless night that seemed to control the world. I have finally found you. The smile on the corner of Xiao Yang's mouth suddenly widened as he looked at the 3 ancient words. The smile on the corner of Xiao Yang's mouth had lasted only for a moment when a chill suddenly appeared in his heart. It was as though there was something observing him. This feeling caused Xiao Yang's expression to gradually become solemn. His eyes swept around him, but he did not discover anything. A moment later, his eyes narrowed and he slowly lowered his head. At the same time, a fire pillar shot out from his finger. The fire pillar spread over this dark world. Xiao Yang's eyes also hardened at this moment. He was stunned as he looked at the space below. The blood on his body seemed to have stilled. This is. Xiao Yang felt as though his skin had exploded within the quiet space. Bright fire light shone on this space, which seemed to have been in darkness for 10,000 years. However, Xiao Yang involuntarily felt a chill over his body despite the light from the flame. The source of this chill seemed to be the enormous creature that was present in the dark space below. It was an indescribably huge creature that lay within the dark empty space without moving. Xiao Yang's sight shifted along its body. However, he was still unable to see an end to its body when his sight was blocked by the darkness in the distance. This mysterious creature was completely purple gold in color. Icy cold scales covered its body. A kind of hard steel-like feeling rose from it. Xiao Yang was floated in the empty space. His eyes were unable to see the creature in its entirety. One could imagine just how unbelievably large this creature was. It was the first time that Xiao Yang had seen a body of this size after all these years. Even though his decades of experience had allowed Xiao Yang to maintain a great control of himself, he still felt greatly shocked when he suddenly discovered that there was actually such a huge creature, which could devour the sky, present in the dark space under him. Who could have imagined that there would actually be such a terrifying creature existing within this quiet space, which appeared to be void of life? Xiao Yang's throat rolled involuntarily. Traces of cold sweat had even appeared on his forehead. He carefully observed the huge creature sitting below. Even with his eyesight, he was unable to guess just what kind of creature it was. I must not remain in this place. Since he had already learnt that the bottom of the magma world did indeed hide the ancient god cave, Xiao Yang had also intended to withdraw. Although that huge creature below was completely quiet and appeared dead, his DI state soul allowed Xiao Yang to detect a trace of dangerous aura. This kind of aura was not inferior to that of Han Tiandi or Jiu Yuan. It was best not to remain in this place for long. The most appropriate course of action was to gather his people and get Jiu Yuan to accompany him to probe this ancient god mansion. Xiao Yang's body slowly pulled back as this thought flashed across his heart. However, he had only just taken 10 steps back when he suddenly sensed that the huge creature's body below him shook slightly. Although this movement was slight, it still caused Xiao Yang's eyes to shrink. He understood that with his strength, he was definitely not mistaken. In that case, there was only one answer. This mysterious creature was still alive. Xiao Yang's retreating speed suddenly soared the moment he thought of this. A pair of huge eyes within the dark empty space, which had been shut for a long time, were suddenly opened when Xiao Yang had begun to pull back. This pair of eyes had a faint redness in them. Those eyes were solemn. Just the size of this pair of eyes was already hundreds of times larger than Xiao Yang. This pair of eyes were locked onto Xiao Yang the moment they had opened. At the same time, an extremely terrifying pressure directly enveloped Xiao Yang's body, causing his retreating speed to suddenly slow. Xiao Yang's expression changed after that terrifying pressure enveloped his body. He activated his DI state soul. Only then did he manage to reduce this feeling of having fallen into a quagmire. Tomb Raider, did you bring the ancient jade? The space suddenly shook as Xiao Yang's spiritual strength surged. A voice, which caused even the space to tremble, suddenly sounded. Xiao Yang tightened his fist. He looked at the pair of huge eyes within the darkness. At this moment, those eyes contained an icy chill as they stared at him in an indifferent fashion. There was no fluctuation within it. I have accidentally barged into this place. Please forgive me if I have disturbed it. I will immediately withdraw. Xiao Yang cupped his hands together towards the eyes and spoke in a deep voice. No ancient jade her? A voice sounded within the space after the creature heard this. Immediately, Xiao Yang seemed to have seen some disappointment and an icy cold murderous intent. This is bad. Xiao Yang's expression changed drastically upon detecting this emotion. He could not be bothered with anything else. The purifying demonic lotus flame covered his body and a pair of bone wings was extended from his back. After which, he hurriedly withdrew. Please remain behind if you do not have it, the indifferent voice once again sounded. After which, the entire space suddenly shook. Bright purple-gold light pillars broke through the darkness. It penetrated through the empty space and ruthlessly shot towards Xiao Yang. Xiao Yang's eyes became cold after he saw that mysterious creature unleashing an attack. His hand seal changed and his enormous spiritual body appeared outside. He widened his mouth and a terrifying spiritual assault swept over from all directions. In an instant, it ruthlessly collided with the purple-golden light pillar. Boom! A storm exploded within the space as the loud sound appeared. The storm swept over the place but the purple light still remained. Xiao Yang's DI state soul's yellow spring divine anger was unable to shatter it. His eyes quickly became even more solemn. With a change of his hand seal, another two ferocious spiritual fluctuations surged out from him. Bang! Two spiritual sonic wave attack heavily smashed onto the purple light. This time around, the purple light was finally shattered. However, Xiao Yang also staggered backwards by 10,000 feet because of the lingering force. What a terrifying strength this big fellow has. Shock surged within Xiao Yang's heart after this exchange. Just a random attack had forced Xiao Yang to use all his strength to block it. The strength of this mysterious creature was definitely not inferior to Hun Tiendi or Jiu Yuan, D State Soul. The mysterious creature's voice within the empty darkness contained a little surprise. Xiao Yang did not have the time to bother about him. He took advantage of the force to once again rush to the exit of this realm. While Xiao Yang was rushing with rapid speed, another sharp wind suddenly surged from behind him. The corner of his eyes shifted and he saw a purple-gold light flashed. It actually agglomerated into a mysterious light seal. After which, it came smashing furiously onto Xiao Yang. Damn it! Xiao Yang's expression was once again altered as he sensed the terrifying strength contained within the light seal. He clenched his fists. Two six-colored extermination fire lotus were formed. After which, he threw them behind him without turning his head. Bang bang! The extermination fire lotus exploded on the light seal. Fire wave churned. However, he did not cause the light seal to shake. Immediately, a ray of light suddenly shot out from within the light seal and headed towards Xiao Yang with lightning-like speed. Xiao Yang was cautious when the light ray shot out. He hurriedly turned around. Both of his hands danced and the purifying demonic fire lotus quickly turned into pink crystals in front of him. Crack crack. The light ray arrived in the blink of an eye. It directly smashed onto the layers of pink fire crystal. Those crystals quickly collapsed an inch at a time. The light ray seemed to have an extremely easy time destroying those originally extremely hard fire crystals. After which, it heavily smashed onto Xiao Yang's body. Xiao Yang's face turned red after suffering this heavy attack. A mouthful of fresh blood was spat out while his body once again used the momentum to withdraw. Xiao Yang's blood dyed the light seal a short distance away. It emitted waves of sizzling sound. Stay behind and accompany me. The mysterious creature did not intend to allow Xiao Yang to escape after defeating him with a single strike. The light seal whistled and once again chased after Xiao Yang. Xiao Yang quietly cried out bitterly after he sensed the wind that was locked onto him. It was far too troublesome to deal with this fellow. He lifted his head and looked at the wiggling space in the distance. After exiting that place, he would be able to escape from this fellow. Although you possess a D state soul, your body is merely at the 7-star Doshan class. Would it not be a joke if I allow you to escape? The space above Xiao Yang's head suddenly shook while Xiao Yang was feeling a slight joy because of his short distance to the exit. Light directly broke through the space. after which, it violently smashed onto Xiao Yang. From the looks of it, if Xiao Yang was struck by it, he would definitely end up with some injuries. However, when the light seal was about to smash downwards, the blood, which adhered onto it, suddenly vaporized. Finally, a trace of golden blood remained behind and flowed along the light seal. The moment this golden blood appeared, the huge body of the mysterious creature that was lingering within the darkness suddenly trembled. A familiar feeling broke through the restraint from his slumber and spread through his body. The light seal suddenly halted when it was still dozens of feet from Xiao Yang's head. However, that intense wind pressure still caused the space around Xiao Yang to explode. This sudden scene had also caused Xiao Yang, who was planning on an all-out fight, to be startled. His eyes flashed and his body turned into a ray of light that shot out. With a couple of flashes, he had appeared at the edge of the space. His body moved. He swiftly rushed in and disappeared. The light seal did not give chase after Xiao Yang had left and disappeared. The pair of huge eyes within the darkness contained a loss that seemed to last for a long time as they stared at the remaining golden blood on the light seal. The light seal drifted and slowly arrived above the huge eye. Golden blood dripped down and landed in the huge eye. Soon after, the lost expression in his eyes swiftly disappeared. Those cold and indifferent large eyes actually revealed waves after waves of joyous ripple. Blood, there is the scent of the child. Suddenly, an earth-shaking like stern roar resounded within the quiet space. That huge body, which seemed to have been stilled for thousands of years, suddenly moved and ruthlessly smashed onto the space. However, a faint light surfaced over this realm in the face of its all-out attack. This faint light caused the space itself to be as tough as a prison. Tushi, ancient god, you bastard. The mysterious creature suddenly turned its head after its futile collision onto the space around him. Those huge eyes stared ruthlessly at the ancient stone door floating in the air. A furious roar that was filled with an unwilling feeling reverberated across this space. However, the ancient stone door remained quiet in the face of its furious roar. It was as though it had remained unchanging since the ancient times. The sound of magma exploding suddenly resounded across the tunnel that led to the underground magma world at the bottom of the blazing Sky Chi refining tower. Immediately, a somewhat miserable figure charged out from the magma in front of the stunned gazes of Zun-Er's group. Xiao Yangji. Zun-Er hurried forward. Her expression changed drastically upon seeing that figure. I'm fine. Xiao Yang's body flashed and landed. He wiped off the trace of blood remaining on the corner of his mouth. Those eyes of his were solemn as they looked at the magma tunnel. He involuntarily clenched his fist. It was unexpected that there was actually such a terrifying existence at the bottom of the magma. What happened? Su Qian, Mang Tiankai and the rest exclaimed. They were also startled by this appearance of Xiao Yang. All of them were clearly aware of Xiao Yang's strength. Yet, even he was turned into such a miserable state. Just what kind of terrifying thing was at the bottom of the magma? Old Mang, inform clan head Jiu Yuan and the rest that the news is confirmed. Xiao Yang spoke in a deep voice with a solemn expression. Mang Tiankai's face twitched violently upon hearing this. His heart involuntarily pounded violently. He understood the importance of this matter. Immediately, he did not dare to slight the situation as he directly turned around and hurriedly left to inform Jiu Yuan and the others of this new information. The ancient god mansion is really located at the bottom of the magma. Kaylin was a little startled as she looked at the magma tunnel and asked. After all, she had stayed inside it for a period of time back then. Yet, she did not sense anything. Xiao Yang nodded. He immediately gave a summary about what had occurred at the bottom of the magma. Zun-Er and the rest involuntarily had a drastic change in expression after they heard that there was a mysterious creature comparable to Jiu Yuan and Hun Tiendi in the realm at the bottom of the lake. Fortunately, that mysterious creature appears to be unable to leave that realm. Otherwise, there will likely be big trouble today. Xiao Yang laughed bitterly and rejoiced a little as he spoke. Based on the strength that the big fellow had displayed, it was likely that no one present would be able to subdue it if it charged out. Next, let's wait for the Alliance army to arrive. If we allow the Hun clan to succeed this time around, it is likely that there will no longer be any opportunity for us to turn things around. Xiao Yang sighed softly. If Hun Tiendi was allowed to obtain the embryonic D pill, he might really end up breaking through to the Do Di class. At that time, no one in this world would be able to fight him. Even the Alliance army would not be able to do so. Zun-Er and the rest nodded upon hearing this. This was all they could do for now. The main hall within the Hun realm. Did you say that your mission has failed? Hun Tiendi sat on the leader's seat and looked at the trembling kneeling figure below with narrowed eyes as he demanded in a faint voice. Yes, for some unknown reason, our trail had been detected by Xiao Yang's group. Hun Yu and the others had been chased by Xiao Yang's group soon after they arrived at the Black Corner region. All of them had perished in the hands of Xiao Yang's group. The figure below was covered with cold sweat. However, his words were still quite clear. How is it possible for Xiao Yang to know of their whereabouts? Hun Tiandi's expression sunk as he demanded. Clan head, Xiao Yang was once a student of the Jiunan Academy in the Black Corner region. I'm afraid that it is because the academy had detected danger and had requested his help. I do not think that he is aware of our intention, that person hurriedly said. Humph, that brat is as sly as a fox. Who knows just what he is thinking? Moreover, if it is not because he had detected something prior to this, how would he be able to arrive in time even if the academy did send a message requesting for help? The nihility devouring flame by the side snorted coldly. Those bowing figures below widened their mouths upon hearing this. However, all of them voiced their agreement. You mean, could it be that Xiao Yang is also aware of the information that the ancient god mansion is located in the Black Corner region? Hun Tiendi frowned and asked. This was information that they had managed to learn after spending great effort to gather all the ancient jade. How could Xiao Yang directly learn of it? We cannot exclude this possibility. Didn't that fellow roam the Black Corner region before? Who knows what he had detected? Black flame surged within the eyes of the nihility devouring flame. He spoke in a deep voice, regardless of whether he had detected anything, it is also time for us to move. Otherwise, it would be a severe blow to us if any trouble occurs. Any delay might result in unexpected changes. Hun Tiendi mused for a moment before nodding. Clearly, news of Xiao Yang's appearance in the Black Corner region had caused him to feel an unease.